day of the 9th Annual Subcommittee meeting. Before proceeding further, I will invite the Secretariat to make any possible announcements. I'm looking to both my left and my right. Yes, DSA. Okay. Yes, Radhika.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for DSA related announcement that participants who had been receiving travel support, DSA payment is made available in conference room 5. That's all from our side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have a small little announcement of my own. That is that he will be relieved to know that he will have to suffer through only the morning with me and my Mexican colleague and Vice Chair Erasmo Martinez is taking over for the afternoon as part of our sort of burden sharing exercise. So bear with me until 1 o'clock or before. We will see closer to that moment. So, right, thank you. So we go back to agenda item 4, the implementation of the Programme of Work and Budget 2022-23 of the United Nations Environment Programme. As per the structure, as I said yesterday, we shall continue with the consideration of agenda item 4, and we, as I noted yesterday, each presentation by regional offices will be 15 minutes, and that will be followed by 45 minutes of discussion, shorter if you please. That is also, you don't have to use every single moment of the 45 minutes, so it's not an instruction of the chair. So we are starting with the Africa office, and I have the pleasure of welcoming the Acting Regional Director, Frank Turiatunga, to give his presentation. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, distinguished representatives, ladies and gentlemen. The UNEP Africa office covers all the 54 African countries and currently has one sub-regional office located in West Africa to cover the West Africa sub-region, and one liaison office which collaborates and connects work with the African Union and the UN Economic Commission for Africa, located in Addis Ababa. This office also serves to support the Federal Republic of Ethiopia. We have 3 country offices in Kenya, Tanzania, and South Africa, project office in Sudan, and some specific support is being provided to Somalia. What it does is that it represents and coordinates UNEP's work in Africa, fostering collaboration and cooperation, building partnerships on key regional and national priorities to address pressing environmental issues. But it also ensures the effective and efficient delivery in response to regional, sub-regional, and national needs. And this includes ensuring better coherence and coordination in the effective delivery of environmental capacity building at all levels. The office hosts the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment, which was mentioned yesterday, and it is also host to one regional convention, the Bamako Convention on Transboundary Movement of Hazardous Wastes. Next slide. Now, the significant developments that have taken place this year include the launch of the African Union Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy and Action Plan, which was launched in June 2022. Another development is the recently concluded resumed 18th regular session of the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment held in September in Dakar, Senegal. And preparations for COP27, which is taking place in November, but to note that there have been a number of pre-COPs within the region, all preparing the region to participate in COP27, as well as countries in Africa also undertaking their own preparatory processes. Next slide. Now, with regard to results, let me first begin by clarifying that these results to be reported have been achieved through global, regional, and with some participation of African countries. So we have regional projects and rather global projects and regional programs, which have some African countries are participating. But we have also got projects and activities that are country specific. There is also continuous work through the normative functions of UNEP. So what is explained here is a summary of those. Now, with regard to climate stability, the areas that we have focused on during this period have been engaging UN country teams to, in terms of transfer of technology and knowledge sharing in delivering nature-based solutions to climate-proof food systems, as well as clean energy, and working on the agro-value chain to curb harvest losses as part of the implementation of the UN Sustainable Cooperation Development Cooperation Framework. We have also supported countries to translate their nationally determined contributions into implementation investment tools, and also using climate change national adaptation plans to support actions, as well as integrating ecosystem-based adaptation and clean energy into NDC implementation. The next area that we have worked on is retooling youth with the skills to take up climate action, but as a source of creating enterprise opportunities. Countries have also been supported to invest in waste recovery, turning waste into value, mainly transitioning from firewood and charcoal to biogas and briquettes. Next slide, and next slide. Please go to the next slide. In terms of living in harmony with nature, we have supported the integration of ecosystem accounts into national accounts, specifically in South Africa, through studies. One of them in South Africa was titled Potential Costs and Benefits of Addressing Land Degradation in the Tukela catchment. The other area has been to work with countries to improve biodiversity outcomes in restoration initiatives, because sometimes restoration initiatives have not taken cognizance of the need to also promote biodiversity outcomes. The other area has been the integration of biodiversity and ecosystem services into food systems. This taking place in mostly Ethiopia and Ghana, as well as specifically for the food systems in Kenya. We have also worked on improving management of transboundary resources, and specifically on the catchment management of transboundary waters in the IGAD sub-region through its groundwater program. Finally, we have provided support to the development of policy support tools to test out scenarios of different policy actions which are undertaken in applying nature action. I'll take the next two slides together. With regard to towards a pollution-free planet, our focus has been on supporting countries to implement low sulfur fuels. And I think here Zambia was the best example. We have also supported countries to develop their air quality regulations in Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Kenya, and assessment of preparedness for electric mobility in Kenya. We have also supported several countries to develop policies and regulations for the sound management of waste, including e-waste. There are digital tools and services that have been developed to accelerate pollution actions, and specifically the development of an online platform for Africa's regional air quality monitoring and reporting. Now, with regard to cross-cutting issues, next slide. On gender, the focus has been on building the capacity of young women and men in international environmental governance, including for implementation of multilateral environmental agreements. For example, we have been training 17 young men and women on biodiversity negotiating skills for global processes. There are also young women and men who are receiving hands-on training through the succession program of the Africa Group of Negotiators on Climate Change, which we are supporting. We have also worked to provide gender disaggregated data to support the uptake of environmental solutions focused on areas that impact women, and this has been done as part of our input into the work of the UN country teams across the region. Now, other cross-cutting issues, next slide, which are related to environmental safeguards. Let me note that these have been ramped up through the strengthening of the national focal point system, which has been the enabler for UNEP's engagement in UN country teams. And the support has been largely on the provision of evidence-based data, information, and analytics to several countries as part of the common country analysis process, as well as in the development of the cooperation frameworks. In addition, we are continuously producing national environment summaries and SDG profiles that have been developed for, we are developing this for selecting countries depending upon their SDCF cycle, the cooperation framework cycle. And the important thing here is these are based on SDG targets and indicators, and they focus on the 3 pillars of UNEP's work: climate change, nature and biodiversity, and pollution and waste. But they're also structured in such a way that they enable seamless integration of the environment in common country analysis and cooperation frameworks. So these are important tools that we are developing to make sure that we can integrate environmental sustainability and resilience into the work of the UN country teams. Finally, under this, not finally, but part of this has been also the building of capacities of UN country teams. The final product that we have been working on with the African Development Bank, based on the NAMCEN decision, is the development of an atlas of Africa's natural capital, which we hope will help countries to integrate natural capital accounting into their national budgets. Next slide. Now, the other cross-cutting issues, but linked to environmental governance, are the following: that we have been supporting the development of procedural rules for the Environment Tribunal to support access to justice for the environment matters in Malawi. There has also been the training of judges in environmental law and operationalization of a training manual on compliance and enforcement in Sierra Leone. The Africa Office has also developed a national action plan, an action plan for the Africa Group in Nairobi on environmental diplomacy. And this is the support that we continuously provide to this group. There is a program for training judges from the Kenya Land and Environment Court, which is continuing. And there is also the development of a training manual on curriculum on environmental crimes in Ethiopia. Next slide. With regard to South-South cooperation, the focus has been largely on sharing lessons and experiences and knowledge on green economy and circular economy principles and practices, sharing information on solutions for climate change, nature and biodiversity loss, but also, as mentioned earlier, retooling young people to develop environment-based enterprises. Next slide. With regard to implementation of MEAs, we have facilitated ratification and early implementation of the Minamata Convention for several countries, assisted countries to adopt lead paint laws. We have also, Africa Office is the main supporter for the Africa negotiators on climate change through financial and technical assistance, and it is largely responsible for this group's participation in COP27. In addition, we have provided, through the regional collaborative platform, support to the UN resident coordinators to work and improve country readiness for COP27. Technical support has also been provided and continues to be provided to the Africa Group of Negotiators on Biodiversity as they work towards developing the post-2020 biodiversity framework. We did also support the UNCCD Vijana Legacy program and the recently concluded COP15 held in May. Next slide. So what opportunities do we see? Very quickly, resource mobilization, including from non-traditional funding partners, is an opportunity. We have seen that there is an opportunity to develop synergistic partnerships with multiple actors in the region who are actually ready to share their technology experience and lessons learned. We have seen opportunities in strengthening the inclusion of poverty and environment objectives to strengthen national budgeting processes. We are seeing opportunities for policy intervention to support renewable energy because this window seems to be opening faster than we thought. There are also opportunities for circular economy implementation in Africa, as well as implementation of the Africa Green Stimulus Program, which is a regional program that was developed by ministers of environment. The risks we see in next slide include limited access to internet, which makes it difficult for us to equally provide support to countries remotely and for equal participation in virtual activities that are UNEP-led. We also see increasing requests for UNEP support. And the risk here is if we don't smartly manage these expectations, there might be thinking that we are not responding as we should. We are seeing climate-related emergencies in Africa, forcing governments to redirect their funds to funding to meeting the needs of immediate emergency response and creating a risk of the region not meeting its environmental commitments and objectives. Finally, the recurrent conflicts in the region and political instability and volatile security situations in certain parts may be exacerbated by climate change, but climate change may also exacerbate these conflicts. Next slide. In the terms of lessons learned, the region is experiencing a growing demand for up-to-date, quality-assured, credible, and relevant data and information. We also note that if we work through the informal sector and tap into the youth demographic, there are opportunities that can come out for the uptake of UNEP's work. We also see the UN country teams having a big role in the uptake of multiple environment-related SDGs, and that partnership building with UN agencies is one of the conduits to ramp up UNEP's intervention at country level. The changes we have made, therefore, relate to more structured UNCT engagement through the National Focal Point System, which was mentioned severally yesterday. We are also undertaking joint programming with UN agencies which have physical presence on the ground, but have got work areas that are related to UNEP, to UNEP's work. We also think that supporting the narrative of the environment as an investment opportunity, which we are doing, provides a source for productive solutions. We have found that if we also engage our member states in active remote resource mobilization, working with the Corporate Services Division, there is a possibility that countries will respond much better than they have had in the past. Lastly, Chair, looking ahead, we want to work more closely with divisions to ensure projects and other initiatives respond to regional and national priorities. And in response to the question from the delegate of Malawi, our role now is to gather information on national and regional priorities and then take them to the divisions, which then using their programming processes to make sure that the projects they develop to respond to these priorities. The divisions also are providing expert support to us and and we can support implementation of projects as necessary. We also see our role as improving coordination and coherence in UNEP support, including for projects that are developed and implemented through the divisions. We also take up responsibility for monitoring the implementation of these projects, to some extent also assisting reporting through the UN development system. We want to fully operationalize and strengthen the UNEP National Focal Point System. We also wish to continue to support countries to translate their nationally determined contributions into implementation investments and to strengthen partnerships with multiple actors and stakeholders in the region, including non-state actors. We are going to engage youth and informal sector operators to take up environment solutions, including as part of their enterprise actions. Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity for the Africa Office to share with the distinguished delegate its work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Turetunga. I would now open the list of speakers, but I do have a couple of pre-booked ones here as well, which are Ghana and Malawi. So Ghana, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor to contribute to the dialogue on agenda item 4. And let me also state at the outset that Ghana aligns itself to the statement delivered yesterday by both the African Group and the group of G77 and China. Let me also commend the director of the Regional Office of Africa for his presentation. Mr. Chair, Ghana is a beneficiary of the Switch African Green Program, as was indicated during the presentation. And this program is funded by the European Union and is being implemented in Ghana by UNEP. The program supports African countries in the transition to an inclusive green economy and a shift to sustainable consumption and production patterns that contribute to poverty eradication and sustainable development. In Ghana, especially between 2014 and 2019, a number of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises were supported through the program in enhancing their capacity in areas such as industrial symbiosis, e-waste management, waste to energy, eco-entrepreneurship, resource efficiency, and product innovation. A survey of beneficiaries conducted reveals that a transition to green economy and sustainable consumption and production practices generated positive social, economic, and environmental outcomes. A number of the MSMEs in Ghana reported that they achieved cost savings through implementing the SCP and green economy practices, including resource efficiency interventions in areas such as energy use, water use, recycling, improved production process, industrial, and eco-innovation. The implementation of the integrated waste management projects in Ghana accounted for about 3/4 of new jobs created through the adoption of improved waste management practices and recycled e-waste program. These efforts have helped to address environmental hazards that are associated with the burning of e-waste to extract metals and with illegal dumping, and has also promoted sustainable consumption and production practices. Currently, activities under the 2022-2023 program of work in Ghana have focused on policy support in areas such as 1, developing a user-friendly, practical, and standard training manual and an online toolkit on development planning in Ghana. Now, planning officers at the national and district levels have the necessary tools and capacity to integrate green economy and sustainability concepts while undertaking their work in local and national planning. 2, assessment, review, and updating of the existing curriculum of the Hotel, Catering, and Tourism Training Institute, known in Ghana as HOTCAT, to reflect sustainable tourism practices. This curriculum will be used to train actors in the hospitality industry in Ghana while instilling sustainable tourism practices in their day-to-day activities within the sector. Mr. Chair, the program ends in February 2023. However, an extension will be requested to enable countries to complete implementation, which was delayed following the COVID-19 pandemic. In conclusion, Ghana wishes to register its appreciation to UNEP and partner countries, especially the European Union, among others, for the continuous support to complement Ghana's effort to address the menace created by electronic waste in the country. These efforts are very important, and we wish to acknowledge that. However, While I recognize these efforts and support, it is significant to equally acknowledge that such efforts essentially deal with the symptoms arising out of unsustainable practices. Sustainable Development Goal 12 encourages all of us that more sustainable production and consumption patterns through various measures, including specific policies on the management of materials that are toxic to the environment. In this regard, Ghana believes that it is of equal importance to take steps and measures to implement policies that promote sustainable production and consumption practices, in particular by tackling the sources of the e-waste so as to promote a healthy environment for the benefit of the affected areas and their populations. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the High Commissioner of Ghana and now give the floor to Malawi. You have the floor. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson and colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here once again today on the second day of the annual subcommittee meeting. Malawi would first of all like to thank the Regional Office for Africa for their presentation on the implementation of the Program of Work and Budget. We have taken note of the various initiatives and interventions that have been taken. And as such, we found their presentation today as being very useful and helpful. From the outset, Malawi would like to appreciate the role that UNEP Secretariat undertakes in the implementation of the Program of Work and Budget. In this regard, therefore, we would like to remind and encourage the senior management of UNEP to be responsive and engage with the African Group in all processes that African Group undertakes. This includes availability during the very important African Ministerial Conference on the Environment. We would also like to call upon the senior leadership of UNEP to be actively engaged with African states by visiting their countries to engage with government, stakeholders, and implementers of projects. Having said that, Mr. Chair, in as far as Malawi is concerned, there are currently several ongoing interventions through UNEP. These interventions are through the following thematic areas: pollution control through sound management of chemicals and waste, climate change, specifically resilience and adaptation, protection from harmful effects of biotechnology, biodiversity conservation and protection, poverty environment nexus, and water policy. These projects, of course, have followed others that have since come to an end. In general, Mr. Chair, Excellencies and colleagues, the interventions in Malawi are mainly aimed at building and enhancing capacity of institutions to enable them to undertake policy and program initiatives or to mainstream, to build information and undertake international and national mandates and obligations, such as national reports to MEAs, including CBD and UNFCCC. It is notable that these interventions currently ongoing in Malawi cut across the three current strategic focus areas of UNEP, namely climate action, nature action or biodiversity action, and pollution action. It is also notable that most of these projects are multi-country in nature. The projects that are going on in Malawi are currently implemented by the Department of Environmental Affairs and our Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning. They have been running mostly from around 2017 and are likely to come to an end around 2025. We have noted as a delegation that most of these projects are under the Global Environmental Facility, meaning that they are undertaken under the earmarked model of funding. This, Mr. Chair, colleagues, has its own challenges, which have been cited numerous times, and we believe we don't have to repeat them here. As I conclude, Mr. Chair, Malawi would like to appreciate the role that the Regional Office for Africa plays in terms of engagement with the African Group in Nairobi, including their availability for information sharing and willingness to provide technical advice. We want to applaud ROA, as it is the short form for the office, for the environmental diplomacy dialogues that have been organized before and after UNEA sessions 4 and 5. These forums have no doubt provided an opportunity to capacitate the ability of African delegations to engage effectively in UNEA processes, especially negotiations and access to important information. ROA has also been very critical in supporting the African Group advance their environmental agenda, including the development of resolutions. However, no matter how commendable such efforts might be by the Regional Office of Africa in assisting the African Group to develop their resolutions, such efforts become hollow if there's no credible, real, and effective implementation of these resolutions. With these few remarks, I once again want to thank the Regional Office for Africa, and my High Commissioner would have been here to make this response, but she is currently presenting her credentials to the Director General of UNON. I thank you, Chair.
I thank the representative of Malawi, and now I have on the speakers list Algeria, Belgium, Morocco, and the United Republic of Tanzania, and I'm pleased to give the floor to the representative of Algeria. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. Algeria would like to align itself with the statement delivered or to be delivered on behalf of the African Group on this agenda item. My delegation would like to thank the Director for the Regional Office for Africa for the informative presentation on the activities of UNEP in our continent and the actions undertaken to address climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. We appreciate those endeavors and the work of ROA office, but we do think that further work has to be mainstreamed to tackle some of the challenges posed to the continent in a tailored manner, such as desertification, land degradation, access to technology and knowledge, capacity building, to refer to a few. To mention the most recent developments related to the environment in my country, last September was the launch of the Parliamentary Network on Climate and Environment, aiming to establish proposals of environment legislative text to reflect on the strengthening of environmental issues in schools and university programs and curricula, and to bring the idea of a green parliament from theory to reality through concrete actions such as the reduction of the use of paper and its recycling, the rational consumption of electricity and fostering of solar energy, as well as rainwater harvesting. The adoption in June 2022 of the African Union Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy and Action Plan 2022-2032 by the African Union Committee of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change, CAHOSC, is an important outcome for a better African action. In this vein, and given the presence since 2001 in Addis Ababa of a liaison office of UNEP to, amongst others, the African Union, it would be much appreciated to receive details on the level of cooperation and coordination with the African Union, be it with the Specialized Technical Committee on Agriculture, Rural Development, Water and Environment, NEPAD, which is now the African Union Development Agency, and other relevant African Union institutions, and how to create synergies and complementarities in the work of UNEP and African Union to better face the environmental challenges, since both the 2030 Sustainable Goals Agenda and the African Union Agenda 2063 identify the environment in its broad dimension as at the center of their priorities. Mr. Chair, the presentation and its PowerPoint that was just made by the Director of ROA indicates that, and I quote, UNEP can partner with other UN agencies to better support countries. End of quote. It also proposes as a way forward to, and I quote, strengthen partnerships with multiple actors and stakeholders in the region, including the non-state actors. End of quote. Can the esteemed regional director enlighten us on why a variety of partnerships are envisaged and considered, except with the natural regional partner, which is the African Union? In particular, if we consider the opportunities of such cooperation and partnership can offer in terms of triangular cooperation with the institutional partners of the African Union. And I'm referring to partners like the European Union, like China, like some Turkey, like the League of Arab States, and so on and so forth. Mr. Chair, we heard also the regional director suggest the idea of the consolidation of various contributions due from member states into one annual invoice from UNEP that could be helpful for member states in budgeting funds due to UNEP. While seeking to hear more about this, my delegation would like to indicate that such a proposal needs to be better matured and discussed with member states. We also heard that the Africa Office management has assigned each African member state a focal point among its program officers to ensure close collaboration on UN SDC FCs. Are those focal points operational? Since my country, at least through its Nairobi permanent mission, has not been yet contacted. Finally, we noticed that the North African region is not very visible in the activities of ROA. Can the Secretariat explain the situation? While having made those comments, I would like to join other colleagues who have thanked the ROA for their efforts and their activities, and indicate that we are available to interact more with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, dear Selma. You are very much missed here in the meeting room. Good to see you online.
Thank you.
I have now the pleasure of giving the floor to Belgium.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. It's very nice to be here after an absence of three years, I have to say. Very nice to be here with you. And I want to thank UNEP for already providing us with such a wealth of information on their activities of the past 6 months in the current program of work. But I would like to ask the director of the Africa Office some questions for clarification and additional information. In your presentation, you speak about countries that are supported in translating their NDCs into implementation investment tools. We were wondering if in future UNEP will also monitor how this impacts resource mobilization efforts, and if it would be able to provide also quantitative data on that impact. Furthermore, the support for enhancement, development, and implementation of the NDCs is also an area of work where other UN organizations and actors play a role. And so to make the UN reform and all you talked about in previous presentations on this, to make this a little bit more concrete, how does UNEP engage with, for instance, on this topic with UN resident coordinators and member states to foster collaboration, increase efficiency, and effective partnerships and burden sharing? So that would be helpful for us to understand better and make this information even more concrete. We also found your work on these decision support tools to provide policy options for integration of biodiversity and ecosystem services in national policies. Very interesting. Are there any links with work that UNDP is doing in this regard with the BioFin program where they support countries to develop sound financial plans for biodiversity. To us, this seems like a really natural partnership, and where the work that both organizations do well could be mutually reinforcing and even strengthening the support to countries. Several results presented indicate that impact can not only be achieved through UNEP's work for environmental benefits, but also to promote socio-economic development. And the regional director also touched briefly on this. Building skills view of supporting the transition from unclean energy sources for household activities to access to clean energy at community level, to name but a few. In relation to the strategic review on UNEP related poverty results, how has the Africa Office worked with UN resident coordinators and resident agencies to enhance the poverty-related effects of UNEP's work? You talked very briefly on this, but this is very much a priority for us, so we would appreciate some more information on that. In the presentation, there's also mention of non-traditional funding partners. Can you provide us with a few examples? And then, well, I shared the same question as the ambassador of Algeria with regards to the country focal points. It would be a suggestion for us to share maybe this list of country focal points that would also enable our embassies in partner countries to reach out to them and to share information, knowledge, and expertise. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the representative of Belgium. And I now give the floor to the representative of Morocco. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for giving my delegation the floor. And at first, my delegation would like to thank Mr. Frank Tarantuya for the quality of the presentation he made on this agenda item, which sets out the multiple activities and actions undertaken under the implementation of the program of work and budget for 2022-2023. And my delegation would like also to congratulate the director of ROA for the excellent leadership and for the excellent initiatives undertaken within the continent. In this regard, it is noteworthy to underline that UNEP within its MTS has made of its regional offices the anchor for delivering the organization's strategic aspirations and securing stronger engagement at the regional and country levels. This means that ROA will have to ensure a better coherence and coordination with United Nations resident coordinators and with United Nations country teams to effectively deliver UNEP's objectives and respond to countries' specific needs and priorities in addressing the three planetary crises. We welcome in this regard the new decision of assigning environment country focal points for each of the 54 African member states. In this regard, my country, who does not avail of a country office, would be very interested in engaging with these focal points to work together and maybe to coordinate together the work on the different environment aspects. On this point, my delegation thinks that such coordination will help partially address the need in reinforcing capacities of ROA and that of its sub-regional offices. My delegation is of the view that ROA should also be able to support the United Nations system at the regional and country level in integrating environmental dimension into development cooperation frameworks and programs and in enhancing national capacities to address pressing environmental issues, including access to financing. My delegation has taken note with appreciation to the reference made in the presentation to South-South cooperation to address the issue of environmental sustainability as provided for in the medium-term strategy. However, we believe that within the continent of Africa, South-South cooperation should not be limited to information sharing, but rather to extend into having ROA engaging countries with the advanced knowledge and expertise to share or export their best practices to other countries in the field of mitigation and climate adaptation activities, in addressing the health crisis. And we all know the interlinkages between environment and pandemics, and also in the achievement of the SDGs. This could be done by ROA across UNEP's policy programming and partnership activities at the regional level, which will contribute to the strengthening of regional engagement and interagency linkages. My delegation would be grateful if ROA can elaborate maybe a little bit more on the project implemented to provide scientific and legal expertise on environmental challenges facing African countries. And another point is, while building on my previous remarks that I have made yesterday during the discussion of agenda item 3, my delegation is interested in getting information on how ROA provides guidance to national governments at the country level. How does it engage with national governments and stakeholders at the country level? Specifically, that there are shortcomings when it comes to the coordination with UN country teams to improve the efficacy of the work of UNEP and its sub-programs at the country level. Finally, and also after my delegation has listened attentively yesterday to the presentations and briefings made by the different regional offices, it found it interesting that maybe regional offices can learn from each other on their success stories. And for instance, it was very interesting to hear the regional office of North America, who had worked efficiently in engaging regional stakeholders, manage initiatives such as the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative, where mayors in partnership with UNEP have mobilized their communities to combat plastic pollution. We think that this example could be as well duplicated maybe in the country, in the African continent, as well as the other initiatives as they were portrayed yesterday in the presentations. I think with this, I finished my comments and questions. Thank you, Chair.
I thank you, the representative of Morocco. I now have on my speakers list the United Republic of Tanzania, Netherlands, and Cameroon, and then the NGOs major group. So Tanzania, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to make an intervention on this very, very important agenda item this morning. On the outset, my delegation aligns itself with the statement that will be issued on behalf of the African Group on this agenda. Further to that, I'd like to take this opportunity to express appreciation to UNEP and ROA for this informative report regarding its work in the Africa region. The timely and comprehensive manner in which this report has been availed is commendable. It has given my delegation a much needed opportunity to appreciate the depth and breadth of UNEP's work in Africa. Further to that, Mr. Chair, my delegation wishes to applaud the invaluable support provided by UNEP towards the 18th AMCEN held in September this year in Dakar, Senegal. The conference was indeed a great success. Let me also echo accolades given to ROA by previous speakers. Specifically, we applaud the increased engagement that ROA has had with our government through the focal person and the country representatives and the permanent representative here in Nairobi. These have been significant avenues to provide the required technical and operational assistance that has helped to ensure that Tanzania stays the course within the multilateral system in addressing environmental challenges. Specifically, Mr. Chair, Tanzania has benefited from the work done by UNEP in the review of the National Environmental Policy and development of a new one, which was launched in October 2021. And the National Environment Master Plan for Strategic Interventions for 2022-2032. These two have helped to translate environmental aspirations to actionable work plans. As such, my delegation would like to reiterate that UNEP, as the global body for environmental matters, is instrumental in mobilizing the relevant stakeholders to support initiatives aimed at addressing environmental challenges by providing finance, facilitating technology transfer, and building the capacity of stakeholders and players. Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates, on the implementation of the work program presented by the Secretariat, my delegation would like to be informed on how does UNEP support countries in addressing socio-economic challenges resulting from environmental degradation and its solutions. We know that climate change, loss of biodiversity, and pollution have magnified unemployment, energy deficiency, and food insecurity, causing loss of livelihoods for many countries in the global south that are less responsible for their cause. To be entirely successful, UNEP needs to assist countries in the global south, such as Tanzania, to develop and implement environmental protection actions that can also contribute to address these major socio-economic challenges: unemployment, energy deficiency, and food insecurity. To this end, Mr. Chair, Tanzania calls for the renewed development and support toward the succession project for the UNEP Poverty Environment Initiative, which comes to an end in December this year. The renewed project should be an opportunity to take advantage of the gains and lessons learned from the ended project and catalyze key actors to increase investment in proper environmental and natural resource management. Mr. Chair, my delegation would like to be informed if there are any plans to renew the project and therefore take advantage of the poverty environment link that has been presented as an opportunity here. Lastly, Mr. Chair, there's a question that we ask ourselves, and my delegation would like to bring it to the table this morning. Where is UNEP? Where is UNEP? Mr. Chair, this is a question we hear often in our capitals from policymakers and partners, and sometimes even from ourselves here in Nairobi, who are guiding and overseeing the work of UNEP. Reading from the rich and informative report, it is evident that UNEP continues to remain the leading global authority that informs, enables, and inspires countries to take action on environmental matters. Unfortunately, Mr. Chair, sometimes UNEP is not seen or heard locally. My delegation is of the view that UNEP needs to enhance its footprint at country level while working with or through other organizations and platforms. Among the ways that this can be done is through continuous engagement with national governments and other stakeholders, and carrying out adequate visibility initiatives at national level as per the UN practice. Mr. Chair, the strengthening of Nairobi as the host of UNEP and the only UN headquarters in the South is vital in this case. With those interventions, Mr. Chair, I thank you for the opportunity and I heed back the microphone. Thank you.
I thank you very much for your intervention. And now I have on the list of speakers the Netherlands. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to all participating in this meeting. I would like to add my voice to thanking the regional office for this presentation and overview of activities that UNEP is implementing in the region. And as we heard from other colleagues, which seems to be well appreciated by several countries. I would like to pose a similar question that I have raised to all the different regional offices, where I try to make a link between the activities of the regional offices and its delivery for the program of work, noting that all regional offices do contribute to the implementation of the program of work. And keeping in mind that you have heard, I think, from several delegations already some recommendation on how you work can even be further strengthened, we would like to ask you, based on the short period of time that you had to contribute to the current medium-term strategy and the program of work, what actions or what experiences you think can be strengthened to have even more impact. And I would like to refer to what our colleague from Tanzania had indicated, how can in your efforts in the region, together with other UN agencies, based on your experience, impact on mainstreaming environment into development or sustainable development, I must say, be further strengthened, and how can UNEP contribute to that? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I thank the representative of the Netherlands and now give the floor to the representative of Cameroon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor. And first and foremost, I would like also to thank the regional direction for their presentation, which is very helpful and very informative. We would also like to thank ROA UNEP for its continuous support to the African group. And mine will be very short. I will ask some specific questions. Maybe ROA could highlight its works, its activities in the Sahel, notably with regards to the advancement of the desert and the drying up of Lake Chad. And also, I haven't heard ROA on their activities in Central Africa. I would specifically want the Africa office to highlight some of their activities with regard to indigenous people in the Congo basin in Central Africa. And finally, we have noted that ROA have assigned some specific officers to each and all member countries of the African region. And I'm wondering how that fits with the current UN reform centered around the resident coordinators. So please, we would like to have some clarity on those points. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Cameroon. I now have two major groups, women, children, and youth, but I also see Malawi again on the list of speakers. I'm checking, do you want to take the floor again, or is it an old hand, which is still up?
Thank you, Chair. It's not an old hand, it's a new hand.
Please.
With your kind direction, there's a question that we had prepared for all the region offices. And just to remind the Region Office for Africa that our question is, noting that most of the interventions by UNEP are project-based as delivered by the various thematic divisions of UNEP, we'd like to hear about the relationship between your regional office and the 7 UNEP divisions in terms of planning, implementation, and reporting on the program of work and budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I would give the floor to the major group of women. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you for the floor, Chair. This is Fraser from Muhabara Hiwet for Social Development Ethiopia, civil society organization. I would like to thank the regional director for the comprehensive presentation. We would like to emphasize on the need to focus on implementation and the mechanisms to implement, as we are facing a horrific natural disasters due to environment and climate change, conflict and wars here and there in the region. I believe it is important to have strong coordination and meaningful engagement of civil society organizations in the planning and implementation processes. We'd like to extend our profound appreciation to UNEP for its civil society organizations engagement mechanism through major groups. We recommend similar engagement mechanisms at regional and national levels. Regarding gender, it is good that there are existing mechanisms of engaging the young women and men in international environmental governance process, but we need more engagement, especially strong representation of the local communities at grassroots level. The need to integrate the issues of sexual and reproductive health rights into climate change, and of course include women in decision-making processes, especially in family planning and biodiversity conservation. Regarding Africa Green Stimulus Program initiated by AMSEN, there should be improved strategic approach and guideline on how CESOs can have more engagement in the implementation, either to accelerate or to make better impact. It is also good to plan to organize experience sharing opportunities with different regions that are successful in engaging communities and civil society organizations in influencing decisions in a way it benefits the community, like that of the Escazú Agreement of the Latin American countries. It is well understood that Africa is suffering the most when it comes to environmental and climate change, with less contribution to the environmental crises that we are facing now. It is very important that development actors, developed countries, and other concerned actors to coordinate in tackling this challenge we face as region and as a globe. We, as CESOs and major groups, would like to express our readiness for alliance and collaborations. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And now let us move over to children and youth. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. My name is David Munene with the Catholic Youth Network for Environmental Sustainability in Africa, SINESA, which is accredited under the UNEP Major Group for Children and Youth and also serving as one of the 2 regional facilitators for the Africa Major Groups and stakeholders to the UNEP. I am making this statement on behalf of my organization, SINESA. We want to congratulate the UNEP Regional Office for Africa for their consistent efforts in running projects that improve the livelihoods of the peoples of Africa and the environment in the continent at large. We register our appreciation for the support given to introduce the 17 young men and women to the negotiating processes through the biodiversity discourse. Altogether, we figure that the 17 should only be seen as a pilot and not an absolute number or even a consistent one to be retained. We would be grateful to understand the process that goes into their selection in terms of regional balance and language variation. This initiative needs scaling up to ensure at least the representation of all countries supported in consultation with the African major groups and stakeholders. Needless to say, sustainability, accountability, and performance monitoring, evaluation, and learning mechanisms should be developed and shared explicitly. Further, it is vital that these young people are included as delegations in their respective government delegations to ensure that experiential learning and knowledge transfer happens organically and seamlessly. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Africa has special needs and circumstances without whose consideration any efforts may not achieve the intended results. These same special needs and circumstances are felt the most at the grassroots level, where the major groups and stakeholders are engaged the most and in touch with the reality on the ground. At SINESA, we would be grateful to get information about the extent to which UNEP-ROA is engaging with the major groups and stakeholders of Africa, even in solutions-oriented interventions to the challenges that we face today. We align ourselves with the statement delivered by Tanzania in emphasizing the need for the strengthening of the UNEP office here in Nairobi and underscore the importance of increasing the support to the Africa major groups and stakeholders to carry the implementation of the UNEP projects in appreciation of the intentional prioritization of the special needs and circumstances of African countries and communities at the grassroots. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are indeed having quite a rich discussion, and I recall that before lunch we are still to go through Asia and the Pacific and West Asia. I would hence give the floor back to Mr. Turetunga for replies to the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and I thank all the distinguished delegates who have made their comments and questions. Chair, I beg your indulgence to summarize my response and to state that I remain available throughout this week and after to have one-on-one discussions and provide detailed information in response to the questions and comments that have been raised. Let me begin by appreciating the distinguished representatives who have spoken. I note the comments from the distinguished representatives of Ghana and Malawi and thank them for their intervention. And for Malawi, on the question that has been asked of all the regional offices, you're asking how we are working with the divisions, given that the projects are division-based. There are very clear rules between the regional office and the divisions. The regional office's responsibility is to make sure that it creates an opportunity to identify information on the priorities of countries and the region, and then works with the division to deliver these priorities to inform the programming process. We are also engaged in supporting the programming process to make sure that these priorities are indeed considered. We support implementation where necessary. We make sure that there is coordination. We support the divisions also to navigate around the politics in the country, to work with institutions better, and also to support the collection of data and information for purposes of monitoring. We then take the responsibility also to report through the UN Development System the work that UNEP is doing at country level through these projects. And through that, we also report through a portal called UN Info, which captures the UN's work at country level and is used to generate a report to member states on the work of the UN development system at country level. So those responsibilities are very clear, and we continue to work with them seamlessly. With Algeria, very quickly, to explain why we have a variety of partnerships. Partnerships are important for implementation, but also partnerships are important to support the thought process, to help us identify what is important for the region. And all of us have a role to play in identifying solutions for the pressing environmental issues, but also as part of the implementation. And that is why we work with multiple partners. They are not involved in the decision-making processes within our office, but they are implementation partners. The issue of the invoice, consolidated invoice, is a suggestion that was made to us by African member states. And we have not yet implemented it, but we have seen that as a possible solution, because I'm available to provide the detail that led to this proposal that was made by the African member states. We have an operational focal point system across Africa, and as suggested, we will be sharing it with the delegation so that they can see who is acting as a focal point. Africa is active in the northern region, but not through an office or anything, but is working directly with the Northern African countries, and sometimes we share this responsibility with the West Asia office. So our response is based on request. If we don't receive requests from countries, then perhaps we are not in position to understand how to respond. However, we still work through the UN country teams in these regions to make sure we provide output. On the question to translate NDCs into investment tools, 72% of African NDCs are not yet operational because they have not been turned into investment tools. Investment tools, for NDCs are very important because they create an opportunity for implementation. If we leave this as something that national governments need to do, then there is no incentive for implementation of these NDCs. With the UN country teams, we coordinate and collaborate these partnerships that we are building. And in terms of our support to the biodiversity tools, for this period, our focus has been on scenario building to show, how different policy actions can lead to different outcomes. And this is building on the work that UNEP is already doing in this area. Now, with regard to the UNRCs and the enhancement of the poverty environment nexus, first of all, we continually share these lessons learned from the Poverty Environment Action Program with the UN resident coordinators. And we are now working very closely with the national coordination officers within the UN resident coordinators office to make sure that these are taken on board. We are also engaging the economists within the UNRC's office to make sure that these are taken on board. With non-traditional funding partners, we found that for implementation at country level, a lot of non-traditional partners such as national financial institutions, private financial institutions, as well as the private sector, largely defined, are coming up to help in implementing solutions at country level. It is not the issue of resource mobilization of bringing resources to UNEP, but as long as they are supporting the vision and activities that are aligned to the medium-term strategy and program of work at country level through the UN country team, then we regard that as resource mobilization. National focal points, this we will share the list. Morocco, thank you for your kind comments. On the coherence with UN resident coordinators, the distinguished delegates will note that in 2019, the Africa Office, with the help from the Policy and Program Division, convened a dialogue with all UNRCs in Africa. And that gave us an understanding of their expectations of us in terms of the support we should provide. And we have been working on the guidance that they gave us. There is a signal now that they would like to have another dialogue with us, but this time with them in leadership and hosting us as such. So it would be a reverse role. We would convene it, but they will be the ones in charge to engage with the divisions and the regional office in Africa to see how we can strengthen further and building up on the recommendations that were made in 2019. So that is in the works. South-South cooperation has included technologies and not just sharing of information. And the technologies we are pursuing are those which provide solutions to address the triple planetary crisis. The provision of legal expertise to countries is based on request. So if the country needs legal expertise, it sends a request through the regional office, and we are able to deliver these requests to the relevant division, in this case, the law division, to see how it can use its current activities to provide this support. Engaging with the national governments, we are using a two-track process. Remember, one of the roles of the regional offices is representational. So we still engage with national institutions, mainly through the ministries are responsible for the environment. Through that discussion, we are able to work directly with national governments, and whatever the needs are expressed, we try to roll them into the UN country team, because we don't work of the UN country team because we don't want to be seen as working independent of those established processes. Regional offices indeed learn from each other, and a lot of what we have done has been learned from other regional offices, and will continue to do so. I thank the distinguished delegate from Tanzania. The Poverty and Environment Initiative is coming to an end at the end of this year. What we are focusing on now is infusing the lessons learned from this long program, the program that has taken a long time, into the actual work of UNEP and that of the UN country teams, as I have said earlier. Where is UNEP? It's difficult when you are non-resident and don't have physical presence. Those questions will always be asked, but we are working very hard to improve our agility and presence. One of the things that we have worked on, as I said, is national focal points, but there is also ongoing work to lift this through surge capacity, meaning that we are going to tap into the divisions to get expertise, but as well as individuals who may also help us to engage with countries, thereby enlarging the presence of UNEP within the region. We hope that at the next meeting we'll be able to report back on how successful this has been. Netherlands talked about the national focal point system. I've addressed it. Building partnerships with UN agencies, I've also talked about it. Yes, we are doing that, and there are a number of agencies such as UNDP, FAO, to some extent UNESCO, ILO, and others, which have areas of work that are almost similar to those of UNEP. When they have physical presence, we go into joint programming with them and are able to support them. They represent us physically in our absence, but we also have made a commitment to be present at all critical UNCT meetings so that our input can also be provided. And the organization has provided resources for this to happen. Cameroon, Lake Chad, we have a program for Lake Chad that has been on freeze because of the conflict in that area. Sometimes you cannot get results or even be active in those areas as long as conflict is there. But I'm happy to share with you that program as well as the UNEP's footprint in Central Africa. And also we'll share with you as with others the national focal point. Major groups, women, yes, just to say that we always include major groups and stakeholders, including making sure there is a gender balance and also balance in terms of youth representation at all events and forums of UNEP. In terms of implementation, we approach this through a track of working with the projects to include youth and women dimensions in the responses. Also with children and youth, your specific question on selection of the negotiators under training, this was through a competitive process, through application and screening, and regional balance has always been something that was considered in every activity that we take. As I said, Chair, I remain available to provide the details. That's all I can do in this short time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I, however, see that there is a follow-up question from the Ambassador of Algeria. Selma, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, for giving me this opportunity to briefly make a follow-up question or comment. I would like, through you, Mr. Chair, to thank ROA Director for what I can see has given detailed responses to questions that were raised this morning. However, I would like to place on record that the question raised by Algeria has been dismissed and ignored. I think that through my statement, and it will be handed over in written form, it was very clear. The question that I have posed was very clear. Algeria has never questioned the issue of multiple partnerships. Not at all. We encourage that. What we have asked is that in light of the presentation and the explanation that was given orally about the PowerPoint presentation, we can see that there is an availability from UNEP, Regional Office for Africa, to explore and to interact, and even there is like a need that we can feel from them to explore partnerships with UN, non-state actors, but they have completely ignored the natural regional partner, which is the African Union. So, Mr. Chair, through you, my questions were very detailed, and I cannot but put on record that the Regional Office Director has ignored this question. Is there a political reason for that? So, because I have noticed, Mr. Chair, that the Regional Office has responded in detail to all other questions. The questions that were asked by Algeria, which are of a fundamental nature regarding the partnerships between the United Nations and the regional organizations. And by the way, I'm sure he knows that there is a framework for partnership between the United Nations and the African Union is fundamental. So why was this question either misunderstood, and this gives me the opportunity to clarify, and I think that I have clarified, or ignored? So please, Mr. Chair, through you, we would like to have a follow-up response to our question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. I would like to give the floor back to the Acting Regional Director, please.
Thank you, and my apologies to the distinguished delegate of Algeria. The omission was not intentional. Perhaps it was because I was hurrying to summarize in the interest of time. So please accept my apology, and let me say that first, there are several avenues through which UNEP is collaborating with the African Union Commission. First is that we have a liaison office, the African Union Commission, and this office participates in all meetings of the African Union Commission where United Nations agencies are invited. And we have regular reports that we prepare, internal reports on our engagement with the African Union, and we can see if there is interest to share on a regular basis this kind of intervention. Secondly, we work with at the higher scale through the United Nations office that is working with the African Union Commission. And through that, we are able to provide input into the strategic discussion between UNEP and through the UN development system, through UNEP and the African Union Commission. And so at the strategic level, we are also present. Thirdly, at the thematic level, we work very closely with the commission responsible for environment. And we have had, as part of the regional collaborative platform, which is a platform of regional directors, continuous engagement. Last week, we were discussing African Union priorities and seeing how we can take these priorities to our own agencies, given the collaborative advantage that each agency would have in picking up those priorities and integrating them in the response that each of the agencies would have. So there is a lot of work that goes on with the African Union. And as I said, we can provide a detail on how much this is and the three different tracks that I've talked about, should you desire that gets done. I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I take it that this has been a rather rich discussion. I note that we have about 1.5 hours before lunch, and we have 2 regional offices to cover. And while thanking the Acting Regional Director for Africa for his intervention and for the clarification given to my Algerian colleague, I would now move on to the presentation by the Asia and the Pacific Regional Office, and would very warmly welcome my dear old friend, Regional Director, Ms. Dechen Tsering, to give her presentation. So good to be in touch again with you. Dechen, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and very nice to see you still on the podium. Excellencies, distinguished representatives, I'm very pleased to present the program implementation of UNEP Asia Pacific from January to June 2022. And the focus of my presentation this morning will be on implementing the program of work priorities through the UN system engagement. This presentation will provide a few examples, will not be a comprehensive overview of UNEP's implementation of the thematic subprograms, foundational and enabling subprograms. Currently, there are 157 UNEP projects in the region. The largest number of projects are in climate and pollution, and the sub-region with the largest number of projects are in Southeast Asia, followed by the Pacific. So if I can present and give you an overview of UNEP Asia Pacific offices. We cover 41 countries. The regional office is based in Bangkok, Thailand. We have country offices in New Delhi, India, and Beijing, China, a Pacific sub-regional office in Apia, Samoa. We do have 2 national officers and resident coordinators offices in Indonesia and Vietnam. We work very closely with the Asia Pacific Regional Civil Society Engagement Mechanism, the Asia Pacific Youth Environment Forum, and we support Asia Pacific Major Groups and Stakeholders Forum prior to UN Environment Assembly. As UNEP, we work to promote a green and just transition that delivers inclusive solutions to address the triple planetary crises of climate, nature, biodiversity loss, pollution, and waste. We work to provide leadership, encourage partnership in caring for the environment by inspiring, informing, enabling nations and people. Next slide, please. The focus really has been to scale up visibility and impact of UNEP's program of work through engaging with country teams. We've done this by strengthening the environmental dimensions of common country analysis, UN Sustainable Development Cooperation frameworks, and providing training to UN country team staff on environment and natural resources. We've scaled up UNEP's work by contributing to joint UN strategies, plans, projects on environment, contributing to normative UN reform policy, and integrating environmental priorities into UN-led regional and intergovernmental mechanisms. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So we've worked at the country level, and like many of my fellow regional directors have mentioned, we are part of the UN country teams. We have 25 UN country teams in the 41 countries we covered. This also includes a few multi-country offices. In many countries, we co-chair the environmental thematic groups. This is so in China and Thailand and India and Laos. We've contributed to the newly finalized UN Sustainable Development Cooperation frameworks, and this is recently for Maldives, the Pacific, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and Vietnam. We've also contributed to the cooperation framework roadmaps in Cambodia, India, Iran, Maldives, Mongolia, Nepal, Pakistan, Papua New Guinea, and we've contributed to common country analysis for Cambodia, Nepal, Pacific, Papua New Guinea. We held many consultations, both at the regional and national level, to inform Stockholm Plus 50 events. And as an example, we facilitate UNEP's advisory support. So in this case, UNEP Finance Initiatives advisory support to the Resident Coordinator's Office in Laos and Thailand. Next slide, please. So in climate change, UNEP co-chairs the issue-based coalition on raising climate ambition with the UN Economic Social Commission for Asia Pacific. So this coalition consists of 15 UN members, and a core area of work of this coalition is structured around mitigating climate change in our region. So we look at how we elevate the level of climate ambition through nationally determined contributions. We look at tackling air pollution and accelerating action towards achieving the World Health Organization Air Quality 2021 guidelines by 2030. We also work closely with countries to help and urgently phase out of coal and jumpstart the much needed energy transition. We've conducted regional reviews of nationally determined contributions. We've had a second edition, and this is used to inform stakeholders in the lead up to the UNFCCC COP27. The focus of the work stream on air pollution is really to work towards a regional modality for regional cooperation on air pollution. And on coal phase out, we've done a series of analytical products, looking at studies from financial risks to buyout of coal power plants, regional dialogues on just energy transition, and the coalition provides readily available material on climate science literacy, training on human rights-based approach to climate action and the environment. Next slide, please. For living in harmony with nature, we've provided joint SDG 15 briefings for the Regional High-Level Political Forum. We've done briefings to all the resident coordinator on nature and biodiversity. We've had the ASEAN working with them on sustainable blue economy. And together with the Convention on Biological Diversity Secretariat and UNEP WCMC, we organized regional briefings on the status of negotiation on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. This meeting was well attended by governments, NGOs, UN country team members, and UN resident coordinators in the region. Next slide, please. On the pollution-free planet, We work really closely with resident coordinators and country teams to prepare national briefs on plastic pollution. We've done so in Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. And this is really to catalyze joint UN work and to increase awareness on the INC process. We've worked with the ASEAN on a sustainable consumption production framework. We've held side events on ending plastic pollution for Southeast Asia. And we've done a lot of scientific work through projects to reduce river plastic pollution in the Ganges and Mekong River. The Mekong River Commission has done a monitoring protocol for plastics. And from data to policy, the Asset Deposition Monitoring Network has been 20 years, and we've looked at the challenges and successes in how asset deposition management in East Asia has taken place. Next slide, please. So on partnerships, when we look at the UN Partnership for Action on Green Economy country level with Indonesia, the focus has been to launch Green Economy Index with Bappenas, the Ministry of National Development Planning. We've looked at developing national inclusive green economy policies to accelerate the green economy transition. And we've provided technical inputs for Indonesia's green recovery roadmap. Next slide, please. Page is also present in India and Thailand, and Page is in partnership with other UN agencies. We work closely with UNIDO, UNDP, ILO. And here in India, we've worked on green jobs and the just transition policy readiness assessment. We've done work on sustainable public procurement. We've mainstreamed green economy principles in 5 smart cities. In Thailand, we've done greening of socioeconomic projects funded under the government's 400 billion baht rehabilitation fund. We've done a green economy stock-taking study that's informed their national economic and social development plan for 2022 to 2026. Next slide, please. Page is also supporting the G20 countries, and this year in Indonesia's presidency, they provided expertise to inform the development of the G20 roadmap for stronger recovery and resilience in developing countries for LDCs and SIDS. And at the end of the year, when India takes the presidency, Page will facilitate continuity of progress made under Indonesia's presidency and will promote exchanges between government officials of 2 countries. We've also started to prepare technical briefing notes to the government for G20 on strengthening circular economy, restoring degraded land. The government of India has already invited UNEP to be a knowledge partner for life campaign working with Niti Aayog. Next slide, please. In terms of the environmental dimension of voluntary national reviews, the annual report by the UN has made it abundantly clear that Asia Pacific is following behind on all the SDGs, except SDG 7 and 9. And we've looked at if we were to achieve the SDGs, we would do so by 2065. And most of the SDGs that are regressing are the environmental related SDGs. So we reviewed 50 voluntary national reviews with IGES, together with 36 Asia Pacific countries, and we supported Tuvalu's Department of Environment in the VNR submission. When we looked at the VNR, what we found was coverage of environment was improving. There was more reference to climate in Paris, the Paris Agreement. There was very limited reference to biodiversity-related SDGs. And what we heard from countries was they wanted support for environmental data gathering and analysis. Several countries mentioned they recognize the importance of environmental sustainability, but they were unable to review their progress on environmental SDG goals and targets due to lack of data and indicators. Next slide, please. Here, when we looked at how we strengthen the environmental dimension of the Asia-Pacific Forum for Sustainable Development and our inputs into the Regional Economic Commission sessions, UNEP has been leading the organization of the regional roundtables. So this year we did this on SDG 15. We prepared briefs on SDG 5, 14, and 15. We organized a side event on environmental human rights as part of the issue-based coalition on human rights and gender. And at the ESCAP annual commission session, we hosted a high-level dialogue on plastic pollution. Next slide, please. On gender, we launched a State of Gender Equality and Climate Change in collaboration with the ASEAN Secretariat and the Committee on Women and UN Women. We also contributed to the recommendation and consolidated inputs to the 66th session of the Commission on the Status of Women in the Context of Climate Change, Environment, and Disaster Risk Reduction. We've also provided guidebooks for practitioners and stakeholders. Next slide, please. UNEP continues to promote South-South cooperation through UNEP-hosted platforms, the Asia-Pacific Clean Air Partnership, regional network meetings to implement the Montreal Protocol, the Asia-Pacific Adaptation Network on Climate Change. And with the World Health Organization, UNEP is a secretariat to the Regional Ministerial Forum on Environment and Health. We are secretariat to the Acid Deposition Monitoring Network and the two regional seas, Northwest Pacific Action Plan and the coordinating body for the seas of East Asia. The Forum of Ministers and Environment Authorities of Asia Pacific, where UNEP is a secretariat, is held in alternate years. And it's a platform for member states, the UN partners, major groups, and stakeholders to discuss regional priorities and to provide inputs to the UN Environment Assembly. The last forum was held by the Republic of Korea, and the next forum is scheduled for the last quarter of 2023. Next slide, please. In terms of opportunities and risk, there's tremendous potential to scale our program of work, outputs, visibility, impact through engaging with the regional collaborative platform, resident coordinators, UN country teams, and leveraging UNEP UN system knowledge and resources. But we find often that we don't have a footprint in all countries. We're not able to respond as quickly as we would like to resident coordinators, country teams, but more and more we work with our resident UN agencies and other partners, so we are able to work with them. Next slide, please. Some of the lessons that we've learned is there is value in engaging in the regional high-level political forum, regional commission sessions. These guide discussions based for the Regional Forum of Ministers. We see opportunities through the UN system for resource mobilization, like the UN Sustainable Development Goals Joint Fund project in Indonesia. And we found the issue-based coalition a concrete mechanism to catalyze UN system-wide action on environment. We've also made sure that we're more systematically involved in the regional forum, the Asia Pacific Forum for Sustainable Development, and the regional commission sessions. We've scaled up UNEP staff engagement with issue-based coalitions, resident coordinators, and UN country teams. Next slide, please. While we look forward this year, we will have the 7th Regional UN Economic Commission's Committee on Environment and Development, which will be held at the ministerial level. The theme is Protecting Our Planet through Regional Cooperation and Solidarity in Asia Pacific, November to early December, and the Forum of Ministers will be held. Next slide, please. And if I may take a few minutes just to highlight a few issues that were raised by the distinguished delegate of Malawi. UNEP is really looking at focusing on results for integrated programs that cut across teams and sub-programs. So we're looking at trying to establish a clear line of sight between what happens at headquarters and on the ground. And here we're looking at a synergy of work between divisions and regional offices. So this new delivery model really will strengthen clarity over the respective roles of regional officers and divisions. The former will do representation, provide strategic direction and coordination, will work at regional, sub-regional, national levels, and it will be able to communicate regional and national priorities for programming. The latter will provide thematic coherence for UNEP's work, be directly accountable for project implementation, and it is our view that a single entity will have overall clear accountability and synergy for a particular result. And the interventions should be consistent, high quality technical level when they're delivered. This is, of course, the first year of the new delivery model. So with this, I thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dechen. I have 4 speakers on my list of speakers at this moment, 2 pre-booked and 3. There's no 4, 5, 6, 5 speakers who have now sort of come in. So followed by New Zealand, followed by Japan, followed by Malawi. Okay. ประเทศไทยนะครับ Thailand, you have the floor.
Very thank you, Excellency Tapiola. Very glad to see you via the screen. And thank you, Director Deshan, for valuable presentation. At the outset, on behalf of the King of Thailand, I'd like to commend UNEP, especially Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, in collaboration with the UN organization, to valuable support the member states, especially the developing countries, in implementing collective action for sustainable development and addressing the triple planetary crisis. Thailand has determined to move forward the achievement of the SDG. Therefore, we have introduced the bio-circular and green economies, or BCG model, as one of the key drivers. Mr. Chair, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take this opportunity to share some of our implementation, which are in line with the UNEP works. Firstly, Thailand recognizes climate change and air pollution as the forefront of the threat to sustainable development. Therefore, we push our effort to put the domestic climate change and air pollution action on the ground. In this regard, I'd like to thank UNEP for technical support on greenhouse gas reduction in paddy field projects in Thailand. And we determine and commit to advancing our partnership with our climate change and clean air coalition partners toward cleaner air and safety climate for the prosperity for the planet. Secondly, in the connection with plastic pollution, Thailand has been accelerating the implementation of the plastic waste management roadmap 2018 to 2030 in order to sustainably management and to stop the country from being a dumping site of plastic waste. Moreover, we also developed the sustainable consumption and production roadmap to scale up action on the circular economy that targets zero waste and pollution throughout material life cycles. Thirdly, Thailand, as the host of the coordinating body on Sea of East Asia Secretariat, I would like to appreciate UNEP for providing assistance to establish a national marine litter system, including creating a national source inventory approach and an analysis of plastic material flows and so on. We very welcome to continue work with the UNEP group and member states to strengthen our cooperation under the COP-C to conserve the coastal and marine resources and address marine pollution. Finally, for the further action regarding establishment of the INC for global legally binding instrument on plastic pollution, from my observation, the circular economy, which adopt a full life cycle approach, is a long journey that requires collaboration networks and strong engagement from multiple stakeholders in order to drive it successfully and effectively. UNEP, of course, is very well suited to lead global efforts. We'd like to encourage UNEP with a forward-looking ability to explore such as the new raw material monitoring reporting mechanism to support national action, financial mechanism and means of implementation, incentive for all stakeholders, and engage with business. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Can I now give the floor to the representative of Sri Lanka, please?
Presentation of the regional director. Sri Lanka takes this opportunity to explain our actions taken to achieve the 2030 agenda with UNEP regional team and express our expectations. First, we appreciate the regional teams for assisting the region in proposing important UNIA resolutions, including the Resolution 5/2 on sustainable nitrogen management proposed by Sri Lanka. Since the adoption of 2030 agenda, Sri Lanka fully engaged in updating policies and updated the National Environment Action Plan. We appreciate the regional office for guidance in developing comprehensive projects to transform our plans into actions. We highlight key interventions. First is the JEF-funded Healthy Landscape Project. This project will revive Sri Lanka's socio-ecologically sensitive areas in our unique tank cascade systems in a holistic manner and develop national cascade management models for food security, ensure well-being and ecosystem health. We appreciate both the technical support of the regional office and finding means of implementation with the Ministry of Environment in current world crisis, instabilities, and overcoming institutional barriers. Sri Lanka expects this strong support further. Second is a project on e-mobility. We believe capacity building, technology transfer, and new frameworks are paramount for transformations towards e-mobility. We appreciate the regional teams in laying foundations in Sri Lanka to introduce sustainable and efficient electric mobility system. These JEF projects will develop national e-mobility framework in 2024 and provincial infrastructure. Building on this project, Sri Lanka considered the request of the UNEP as JEF agency to allocate JEF 8 country staff funds to design a new project on e-mobility, which is under discussion. We will allocate JEF staff funds under full flexibility concept, and funds would be allocated from other focal areas, such as biodiversity. As the JEF focal point in Sri Lanka, I have a comment here. In the context of less investment in biodiversity and land degradation focal areas, regional teams should coordinate with agencies effectively in country development planning, especially in countries like Sri Lanka facing financial hardships. This will allow us to use the scarce grant funding efficiently. We also appreciate projects enabled us achieving targets of the National Ozone Unit and air quality improvements with support of regional office. Sri Lanka look forward to furthering this cooperation to improve air quality monitoring and especially transboundary air pollution. Let me now turn to regional cooperation aspects, which are in future with two highlights. First, Sri Lanka believes triple planetary crisis is global and essentially a transboundary in nature, and therefore we should find common regional approaches at first. Giving an example of such cooperation, we appreciate the UNEP support for regional nitrogen assessments, which guides national action plans of South Asia now. Regional office can strengthen interventions in transboundary air pollution, marine pollution, plastics pollution, and chemical management at regional level and appreciates the initiatives taken already. Second, there is a growing risk in the region to deviate countries from the sustainable development paths in crisis times. Sri Lanka is currently experiencing this risk. We are finding ways to address triple planetary crisis in our economic hardship. And with a positive note, I highlight here that local fuel crisis created currently a new national discourse towards more greener transformation. For example, in renewable energy sector. We consider this as an opportunity for UNEP regional office to guide us in correct path with UN resident coordinators teams. Finally, Sri Lanka agree with Tanzania and requests increased visibility of the UNEP in our countries. While appreciating the UNEP regional team, we also reiterate our prospects for developing plans regionally to use available limited resources efficiently and coherently. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I now have on the list of speakers Sweden, followed by New Zealand, Japan, Malawi, Indonesia, and the United States. Sweden, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess it's good afternoon now at midday, yes. So dear regional directors or dear regional director and dear delegates, as this is the first occasion that Sweden takes the floor, we want to take this opportunity to thank the chair and the secretariat for the good preparations for this meeting. We also want to commend the secretariat for taking us through UNEP's work region by region. And Sweden would also, as expressed yesterday by EU, Barbados and Netherlands, suggest that future regional presentations focus on the strategic priorities for each region, on how the work has achieved the intermediate results, and what lessons have been learned in delivering to the medium-term strategy as well as the program of work. Thank you very much for this regional presentation from the regional director, which is a very informative presentation on Asia and the Pacific. And noticed on the PowerPoint that it was mentioned one project that Sweden is funding, the Empower project, and want to just highlight that our experience on this has been very positive, showing the experience of working between different UN organs, so women, UN Women and UNEP on this project. This project has really shown success in showing the responsiveness to the issues of gender equality and human rights-based approach. Despite the challenges of the pandemic, this project has helped to empower women as change agents for raising climate ambition and energy transition, as well as secure increased economic security for women, including ethnic minority groups. In saying that, this project is regarded as a champion pilot, I would say, in the region, and is not a regular sort of outcome of projects. And therefore, we really underscore that this type of work should be done even further in advancing the work. And we would like to ask the Secretariat to elaborate how the gender equality aspects will be worked further to be mainstream in UNEP's operations at large. So we look forward to the discussions on this in more depth later in our agenda. And lastly, I just want to also reiterate, as a number of member states have also mentioned this yesterday and today, on the poverty review that was undertaken in 2021, which was funded by Sweden. And we note the appreciation that UNEP intends to follow up on the recommendations to include a stronger people-oriented and social approach in its operations and bring in the livelihood component, which has also been clear from other member states that this is an important aspect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sweden. I now give the floor to our friends from New Zealand. You have the floor.
This is the first time my delegation has taken the floor, so let me thank you, Mr. Chair, for your excellent stewardship of our meeting, and thank the Executive Director and her team, including in the Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, for their tireless work on the global environment agenda. It is a delight to be back here in Nairobi and to reconnect with colleagues in person. I have a few comments and observations on the Regional Director's report. So first of all, we are encouraged by the breadth and sheer volume of activity covered in this report. We know that there is a real commitment by UNEP and countries in the region, including my own, to implement the program of work, and this report gives us confidence that it's happening. We are especially pleased to see that UNEP and the Sub-Regional Office in Samoa continues to work closely with the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Programme as the organisation charged by regional governments with promoting the protection and management of the environment and natural resources of the Pacific. Naturally, we would like to know how implementation is tracking against expected results and outcomes, but we do understand why that type of assessment would be difficult to perform and present at this point in time. The European Union raised an interesting question yesterday about whether we could better align the reporting cycle with the annual subcommittee meeting to accommodate more in-depth results-based reporting. We think that is an idea worth exploring while avoiding increasing the reporting burden, especially on smaller countries. Second, this report does a good job of making UNEP's role in an activity clear by using active language like supported a webinar or organised a regional briefing. So we encourage that type of attribution in these high-level summary reports. And this applies across all the regional updates so that UNEP's action or intervention is discernible. On cross-cutting issues, we're pleased to see the focus on strengthening the environmental dimension of VNRs, and we encourage UNEP to share learnings and best practice widely. The Sustainable Development Goals Report 2022 paints an especially bleak picture in relation to the environmental SDGs and their funding, and VNRs could have an important role to play in focusing energy and attention for the remaining period. We're also pleased to see the work on gender and safeguards and encourage that to continue. On UN system engagement issues, we welcome the work you are doing with RCs and country teams to scale up visibility and impact of program of work priorities and visibility of MEA commitments. In future reporting, we look forward to seeing how that work continues to translate into cooperation frameworks and other strategies and plans with a focus on biodiversity and pollution, as well as climate change. In the Pacific Islands region, these efforts will complement the work that New Zealand and others are doing to support Pacific Island countries to secure access to climate and environment finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I now see Japan on the list of speakers. Japan, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, since this is the first time our delegation takes floor, we would like to appreciate UNEP's continuous effort and preparation for the annual subcommittee meeting, and also Mr. Chair for the smooth operation of the meeting. We continue to work with UNEP as the leading authority that sets the global environmental agenda. Thank you very much for UNEP Asia Pacific Regional Office for the comprehensive presentation this morning. We could see that wide range of activities have taken place across the region. We acknowledge that as a member state, we all need to work on addressing the triple planetary crisis. Japan would like to reiterate our national priority on combating plastic pollution, and we are ready to engage in the first INC meeting, which will take place in 1 month. Regarding the plastic pollution, Japan has led the development of Osaka Blue Ocean Vision that aims to reduce additional pollution by marine plastic litter to 0 by 2050 during Osaka G20 in 2019. This vision is so far shared by over 80 countries and regions. In addition, placing emphasis on engagement with countries that discharge plastic, launched its own marine initiative to support developing countries both through UNEP and bilaterally. We welcome the intervention by the regional office on the countermeasures project in the presentation, as this project supported UNEP and multiple countries along Ganges and Mekong rivers to collect river plastic pollution data and project methodology that can be utilized for implementation of the legally binding instrument on plastic pollution. Japan appreciates Madame E.D. Anderson's inspiring and informative opening remarks yesterday morning, and we also thank her for visiting our country last month. She attended the 30th anniversary event for UNEP International Environmental Technology Center, IETC, in Osaka. We expect that IETC shall play a supportive role for implementation of the legally binding instrument on the plastic pollution. In close cooperation with the UNEP and the IETC, Japan will continue to make every effort to contribute to the negotiations for a treaty and to the realization of effective and progressive action for marine plastic pollution. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the representative of Japan and now give the floor to the representative of Malawi. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank you for giving my delegation the floor to speak again. I just want to recall, since we have come to the end of the last region offices, that we have been asking this question, and indulge me to repeat it, noting that most of the interventions by UNEP are project-based as delivered by the various thematic divisions of UNEP. We'd like to hear about the relationship between the regional office and the 7 UNEP divisions in terms of planning, implementation, and reporting on the program of work and budget. We want to thank all the regional offices for attempting to respond. We want to single out and thank sincerely the regional office for Asia for their response to our question. I'd like to kindly request if that can be emailed to my delegation as soon as possible for use during this annual subcommittee meeting. We also want to single out the North American office for part of their ear-catching answer, where they said they see their role, and I hope I'm quoting them correctly, as being that of amplification of the work of the divisions at headquarters. Mr. Chair, our question in view of the agenda at hand is very important because it speaks to the strategic and operational effectiveness of UNEP. It speaks to the who, how, and why of mandate delivery, of program implementation. This is why we are looking for answers that are clear, evidence-based, but above all realistic. We have sat here in this room since yesterday, hearing from regional offices on implementation, and I want to underline the word implementation of the program of work and budget. In the past, we have been receiving reports from the divisions of UNEP. This state of affairs, therefore, allows us to ask these questions, such a question, to understand the underlying nuances and possible implications of this relationship. So bear with us when we keep probing on this matter, and we hope going forward, since this agenda item is not completed, maybe from the management perspective, we'll also get a better response, if I want to use that word, or we want to get a response from the management perspective as they see it sitting from that bird's eye view. But above all, Mr. Chair, I want to thank you so much for having given us a chance to keep asking this question at the end of each presentation. And lastly, as a matter of, on a procedural matter, we had requested that at the beginning whether you would give a chance for general comments, and you indicated that you certainly provide that, and we look forward to that opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I see that the speakers list has also, after China, grown with the Netherlands, and I recall we still have the West Asia office to go through this morning as well. I now give the floor to Indonesia, who's the next on my list, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And at the outset, I would like to thank Ibu Deshen. It's very nice to see on screen, Ibu. Thank you, Director of Asia and the Pacific and her team for the hard work in the region. This presentation provides us with many valuable information and also triggers us for broader cooperation opportunity in the future. Indonesia reaps the benefit of the work of UNEP Regional Office in Bangkok, as well as UNEP Advisor in Jakarta in various aspects, including, among others, in green economy, disaster risk reduction, environmentally friendly transportation, peatlands, and sustainable financial system, just to name a few. Furthermore, Indonesia also reaps the benefit of the work of UNEP Asia Pacific region, Asia Pacific office through the regional cooperation under the ASEAN framework. And in addition to that, during our G20 presidency, UNEP Asia Pacific office also provides various support, which we really appreciate. We agree with the presentation that there is a big room for opportunity to scale up the feasibility and impact of the program of work output through engagement with stakeholders, national stakeholders, as well as local stakeholders, if I may say. Furthermore, we would also like to encourage the UNEP Asia Pacific office to strengthen engagement with universities and relevant research centers to provide more opportunities for academic communities to be involved in the activities of UNEP Asia Pacific Office. On South-South cooperation, Indonesia is of the view that UNEP Asia Pacific Office can play a more active role in creating the enabling environment to catalyze cooperation among member states in Asia Pacific on capacity building as well as on knowledge sharing activities. For example, cooperation between Indonesia and countries in the Pacific region facilitated and supported by UNEP Asia Pacific Office. In this opportunity, our delegation would also like to request the active role of UNEP Asia Pacific Office to support the implementation of the resolution UNEA 5/4 on sustainable lake management. We look forward for a continued close cooperation between Indonesia and the UNEP Asia Pacific Office. I thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Indonesia and now give the floor to the representative of the United States. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Chair. The United States thanks the regional offices for their work and their reports during this meeting. As I highlighted yesterday, we are working with UNEP and other stakeholders to see how we can make a step change on the global effort on air pollution. We believe one step in this direction, which we strongly support, is the efforts in the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, ESCAP, where we are working with other member states to adopt a regional action plan on air pollution at ESCAP's Environment Ministerial Meeting, November 29, December 1. We urge all member states of ESCAP to support this historic effort. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I now give the floor to China, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Am I audible?
Loud and clear.
Thank you so much. I apologize for leaving the room in such a hurry because of some emergencies, but thanks to the Microsoft Teams, we can continue working as a team. I thank you very much, Madam Chen Sarian, for your comprehensive report. Very unfortunately, I only covered most of it. And thank you so much for continuing supporting the work of the China Council on international cooperation on environment and development, what we call CSAT. It's a huge think tank which brought the brilliant concepts and ideas and solutions of environmental protection and sustainability from the rest parts of the world to China in the history. But after its 30 years of involvement, it is a two-way communication dialogue platform for environmental policies, philosophies, and more importantly, the opportunities to enhance the cooperation in the region and beyond. And more importantly, I would also like to recall your national office in Beijing also organized a event celebrating the 15th anniversary of UNEP. And that attracts a lot of attention from the top leaders. And I got 2 ministers participated in that event and also has a large audience among the big population in China who has been enjoying highest than ever environmental awareness thanks to our years of effort and cooperation with UNEP and other member states. And this government of China has been advocating and practicing environmental improvement in the last 10 years. Tremendous results have been produced thanks to the collective effort by Chinese people and their partners abroad. And we believe it is the right time for us to keep it not to ourselves, but also to share it with a global or at least regional audiences. So it is our sincere appreciation and our wish that the regional office could play more active role in this regard to catalyzing the cooperation in the field of the environment, covering a wide range of environmental elements in the region and maybe beyond. And as a Chinese government, we set up a strategic target to address the pollution in air, water, and soil in order to achieve blue sky, clear water, and clean soils. And definitely some key elements, as kindly mentioned by the previous colleagues, has been also included in China's strategy on environmental protection, ranging from air pollution protection, air pollution, and plastic pollution prevention and control. And the last point I'd like to make is about the geographic balance. I hope the similar balance and principle of this geographic balance could be also represented in your good office. And China, as one of the underrepresented country in UNEP, is willing to devote more talent and to encourage more Chinese nationals to compete for the job vacancies and opportunities with your regional office and with UNEP as a whole. Thank you so much.
I thank the representative of China and now give the floor to the Netherlands. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to note that I had a similar question like Malawi, so I think it's been partly addressed. But now I have the floor. I just wanted to point out to you, Mr. Chair, yesterday you promised that there would be a possibility to make some more general remarks after we have received the presentations, and I just wanted to flag that I will make use of that offer that you made yesterday. Thank you. So I will come back after the last presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With this, we have concluded the list of speakers, and I would then give the floor back to you, Madam Regional Director Deodeshin, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And if I would like, if I can start, I would like to thank first Kun Pavich from Thailand, and I note the important Thailand places to the biocircular green economy and the work on climate and cleaner coalition. I also note the support for the coordinating body of Seas of East Asia, and I note the comment from Kun Pavich that we have to make sure that there's strong engagement of multiple stakeholders for the INC Plastic One, and to make sure that raw material monitoring mechanisms, means of implementation, financial mechanisms, and to engage with business. So I will make sure that I convey this to the INC Secretariat, and we will take this forward. If I go to Sri Lanka, I note very much, the importance of the sustainable nitrogen management, the UNEA resolution, and also the very clear guidance that the scarce public funding, the JEF funding, that we ensure that we're able to utilize it, and we're able to utilize this funding, the technical support in overcoming institutional barriers. We welcome the support for e-mobility and the establishment of a sustainable electric mobility forward framework going forward. We also note that there should be close coordination in any programming of projects. And here I think specifically with the Global Environment Facility, with country development plans to use scarce grant funds efficiently. Madam, we have heard you. We note that we will take this forward. We also note the importance of doing transboundary work on air pollution, marine pollution, and looking for regional solutions, including with nitrogen management. We also note, and we hear you, that when there is a crisis, often countries deviate from sustainable development goals, and we will work to support a national discourse to more greener transitions and energy transitions. We also note, Madam, that you raise the issue of UNEP visibility. We will endeavor to make sure that we are more visible. I mean, in keeping with what the distinguished delegate of Tanzania talked about, more increased visibility of UNEP at the country level. With I think we thank the delegate from Sweden, and we welcome the support for the Empower project, which UNEP and UN Women are together jointly implementing. And when we look at how we take this work forward, UNEP currently has developed a new gender policy, and it was informed by a gender evaluation, which was completed this July. And within this evaluation and the new gender policy, there is a commitment to increase staff capacity, to ensure better budgets for gender activities within UNEP programs and projects, to strengthen the gender architecture within UNEP. The new gender policy and strategy will align to the current program of work, and as a result, a broad consultation within the organization. We had surveys and the surveys with all staff. Just in terms of the project, my colleagues had mentioned that there were some results, and we were talking about women-led enterprises in Bangladesh, Cambodia, Vietnam, using renewable energy technologies, accessing financing for climate-resilient livelihoods. And we note 400 women reported direct economic benefits from access to renewable energy. There's also been, UNEP has taken forward some of our work to support the nationally determined contributions of Vietnam and Cambodia to make sure they're gender responsive. And we're working with ASEAN on a roadmap to accelerate ASEAN's renewable energy deployment through gender responsive energy policy. And this is, of course, learning that we have from the Empower project and working very closely with UN Women. We thank New Zealand. We work very closely with SPREP in the Pacific. UNEP is co-located with SPREP in Apia, Samoa. Our work with multilateral environmental agreements, building capacity on science and literacy, on chemicals, of the executing agency is SPREP. We welcome the support for VNRs and SDGs, and we note your comment on tracking expected results, similarly to comments that the EU raised yesterday. And we are also encouraged with your support for our work with country teams, the program of work, and the MEA commitments. I would like to thank Japan for the support for countermeasures and really working with plastic pollution both in the Ganges and the Mekong. Osaka Blue Vision really had the framework to get the political commitment of countries in the region on plastic pollution. We note the role of the International Environmental Technology Center in supporting the INC process, and we welcome the 30th anniversary, and we welcome support from Japan. With the distinguished delegate of Malawi, I thank you very much for your comment. And I think we note when we get it right, the regional officers are able to have the networks to bring in feedback from countries. And when we get it wrong, divisions parachute. So now we've set up a concept approval group where divisions and regional directors sit together, and we actually look at project concepts in the initial part of the project cycle. And we see the concept really to make sure that we have the national priorities, regional priorities reflected through development plans, through cooperation frameworks, and the divisions make sure that the technical expertise. This is the first year of the delivery model. We have senior management team meetings. We've set up working groups across regions, divisions. We work very closely. The deputies of the regional officers and the deputies of the regions work very closely on the aspects of program management and operations. And we are hopeful this will improve our delivery. And I look forward to providing a response to you, sir. Indonesia, Pak Danny, thank you very much for your comments. And we note that there is opportunity to scale up visibility through engaging with stakeholders and with universities. I've been told that we actually work quite closely with the Institute Technology of Bandung, and we've also been working with Chinua, Tongji, Terry, Thammasat, King Mongkut University. And but we will, and this is together with Environment and Health Forum, where Indonesia right now is the chair. But we will continue to make sure that we engage with universities in a structured and in a continuous way. I thank the Honorable Delegate of the United States who mentioned the Regional Action Plan, the SCAP's ministerial meeting. This is the regional modality on air pollution. UNEP had the opportunity to provide an overview of the actions that countries were doing at the national level, and this Regional Action Plan is going to be extremely important. UNEP is working very closely with SCAP and supporting it. I thank the Honorable Chinese Delegate, DPR Joe, and we note we will continue to actively work to support the work of the China Council. And I thank him for his very strong support of the China office. I note the comment on geographical balance for staffing in the regional office. And I also note that there are opportunities to take forward. And I think Indonesia also mentioned the South-South cooperation with the Pacific. And the Honorable Delegate of China talked about the regional audience, more South-South cooperation in areas of air, water, and soil. I note your comments, sir. And I think also, and if there are any comments that we have missed, please reach out to us, and I look forward to providing comments. With this, sir, I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Just when you started replying, the Children and Youth Major Group asked for the floor, so let's still hear them out, and I may, if there's a question, come back to you, Dacian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you also for allowing us to intervene after the response from the Secretariat. We would like to thank the UNEP Asia Pacific Office for their presentation. To keep our remarks brief, we would highlight the following key points. First, we are grateful for the support that was provided by the UNEP Asia Pacific Office for the preparation and delivery of the first Asia Pacific Regional Youth Environment Forum that took place last year in the preparation of the Ministerial Asia Pacific Forum. We would like to request for continued support for the Youth Forum in the lead up to UNEA 6 at an appropriate timing next year where such a forum could happen. Secondly, we would like to intervene on the matter of issue-based coalitions on the regional level, which are a new structure under the UN reform. And we would like to request for more engagement of youth, especially on the thematic working group on education and environment, where young people should be engaged with the IBCs. In that context, we would also request coherence with the Asia Pacific Interagency Network on Youth, the APINI, which is also engaged on the regional level. Finally, while young people in Asia Pacific region can continue to engage at specific forums and events, building on similar models with other UN agencies and similar UNEP divisions, we also request for programmatic support for young people throughout the year where they can self-manage their activities and consultation in the lead up to UNEA 6. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Regional Director, would you want to come take the floor again in reply briefly?
Thank you very much, sir. And just to appreciate the work of the Children and Major Group, we note the request for continued support for the Youth Environment Forum. And we also note, closer coordination with the interagency groups and the issue-based coalition. This is well noted, sir. I thank you.
Thank you. In that case, I thank you, dear Dacian, dear Madam Regional Director. Give my best to everybody at the office and to everybody in my old hometown. It was great seeing you, and thank you for your interventions. Dear colleagues, dear friends, we have one regional director left, that is West Asia. Now, to answer the distinguished delegate of the Netherlands on the general remarks, of course they will be allowed, as I said, but I do also note that we have used much more time than we had scheduled for these proceedings. Hence, I do plan to wrap this up today at 1500 hours, so quarter past 1 p.m. and break for lunch because of the side events and other meetings which people may have. you have seen that in our schedule, it's been foreseen that what we don't manage to wrap up in the course of the week, we may come back in on Friday morning. So be prepared. I'm looking at the time that most likely we will have a round of more general concluding remarks from the floor on this agenda item on Friday morning, because otherwise we will not be able to keep up to the timelines which we have before then until the timelines we have from here on to Friday. So with this, I would give the floor to Mr. Sami Dimasi, the Regional Director of the West Asia Office. Mr. Dimasi, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, last but absolutely not least, I have the honor to present to you an overview of the progress on the implementation of the region. The Regional Office for West Asia serves a number of interrelated functions. We support countries in developing capacities, provide advisory services, assist countries in accessing environment and climate financing, as well as assisting with the implementation of the multilateral environmental agreements. We put emphasis on the advocacy and awareness roles through inspiring actions by stakeholders and convening regional consultation processes, including those related to UNEA resolutions. The office generates data and knowledge through environmental assessments to inform decision-making. In doing so, we fully engage with the UN system at both national and regional levels, as well as we believe this is the principal enabler that facilitates our work in the integration of environment into the UN cooperation frameworks, the 2030 Agenda, and the Sustainable Development Goals. In terms of significant regional developments, as of the beginning of the year, we witnessed a buildup of momentum as we get closer to COP27 in Egypt. Preparation for COP28 in UAE already started from our side, and we are working closely with the RC office in UAE to ensure the UN is ready for any support requested by the government. Here I can inform you that UNEP, through the West Asia office, will be availing a full-time resource stationed within the RC office to support the UNCT as a whole and the government of UAE. UNEP was also a co-organizer of the Arab Forum for Environment and Development, the AFSD, which was held in April 2022. In addition to checking on the status of progress towards achieving the SDGs, the outcome of the forum feeds into the high-level political forum. I may also highlight two mega initiatives, the Saudi Green Initiative and the Middle East Green Initiative, launched by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Both initiatives are at advanced stage of development and about to be ready for implementation. Next slide, please. The Regional Office for West Asia covers 12 countries constituting of the 6 GCC countries, 4 Levant, Iraq, and Yemen. We look at ourselves really as having a unique role in that we are the organization's representation to the League of Arab States, which includes the 10 North Africa Arab countries also, and hence making the bridge between 3 political structures, being Africa, through AMSON, the Asia Pacific Environment Forum, and the Arab Ministerial Conference, CAMRI. Countries in the regions have varied development contexts, but they share common environmental challenges and needs. We have also established project offices in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Qatar since 2020. Next slide, please. Allow me now to move into the programmatic results achieved during the first half of the year. And here, on climate stability, we support countries in enhancing reporting, transparency, adaptation planning, and inspiring more climate action ambition. In partnership with the Islamic Development Bank, a report on assessing the potential for achieving net zero carbon pathways for the energy sector in West Asia has been finalized and will be officially launched at COP27. Along the same line, the Green Growth Assessment for the Sultanate of Oman was conducted, and the Low Carbon Development Strategy for the State of Kuwait was also initiated. On adaptation, we have concluded the Climate Public Expenditure and Investment Review for Iraq. This assessment will not only assist Iraq in increasing adaptation financing, but the experience gained will inform adaptation actions in the region and how it can be integrated into national development plans and budgets. Next slide, please. On living in harmony with nature, together with our partner FAO, this year witnessed the launch of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration in March 2022, which is now becoming a very active program in our region. We have a number of regional partners joining the network. Restoration projects, especially by CSOs and local communities, started at the local level in Lebanon and Jordan. Another milestone achieved is the declaration of 2 protected areas in Iraq under the newly established network of protected areas supported by UNEP with funding from the GEF. The 2 protected areas, Al-Tib and Al-Dalmaj, are of national and global biodiversity significance. They will increase areas under protection in Iraq by 211,200 hectares. We have also finalized the manual for environmentally sound coastal dredging in the GCC as part of the Green Gulf Initiative with the GCC countries. Here, the objective is to protect coastal ecosystems and ensure environment recovery while meeting the development objectives of the countries. Food waste is a priority issue for our region. That is why we have established a regional food waste program since 2020, where we produced the food waste report and supported countries in developing the food waste index and collecting data for the relevant SDGs. This year, we launched the Recipe of Change campaign to raise awareness on food waste, and the campaign was facilitated by 10 leading Arab chefs and reached wide audience through social media. Next slide, please. The third programmatic objective is to work towards a pollution-free planet. This is a large and multidisciplinary program which includes chemicals and waste management, air quality, and pollution. The region is suffering from increased waste generation of all types, including plastics. A number of cities suffer from deteriorating air quality amplified by sand and dust storms. In addition, the region is still in need of support to implement the MEAs related to chemicals such as Stockholm, Minamata, and Rotterdam. In terms of result, we partnered with UNITAR to support the Gulf countries as one economic bloc in developing the unified guidelines for the sound management of chemicals. We piloted an integrated approach to pollution assessment and assisted Iraq in developing an integrated strategy for pollution control and abatement. The National Implementation Plan for POPs for Bahrain was launched, and the waste minimization guidelines for Oman was completed. Last but not least, the West Asia Sustainable Fashion Academy for the region was launched, and the Net Zero Waste Fashion and Eco Design Marathon organized in Lebanon. On air pollution guidelines for air quality, guidelines for air quality data management for the GCC was finalized also. Based on the air quality strategy developed last year with support from the office, we are extending our assistance to Palestine to improve air quality legislation and with the provision of low-cost localized air quality monitoring. Next slide, please. Gender is cutting across our programs and activities. We ensure that gender parity is addressed in recruitment as well as our project activities and events. To give you an example, the West Asia Regional Multi-Stakeholder Meeting for Stockholm's Plus 50 on 11 and 12 May attracted more than 130 participants where we achieved full gender parity. The GCF projects on climate resilience for Bahrain and the National Adaptation Plan for Iraq are implementing action plans to ensure gender consideration in all aspects of the projects. Next slide, please. Another cross-cutting issue is the environmental and social safeguards. It goes without saying that the office is complying with the corporate guidelines in this respect. Proper stakeholder consultations at the local level were held prior to the declaration of the 2 protected areas in Iraq, so that the livelihoods of local communities are not affected, but at the same time, environment is preserved. Next slide, please. We look at our program as a de facto South-South cooperation. For example, under the Green Gulf Initiative, countries of the GCC were brought together to share knowledge and experience. We promote the recruitment of experts from the North and the global South alike. Next slide, please. As I stated in my first slide at the beginning of the presentation, one of the fundamental functions of the regional office is to support countries implement multilateral environmental agreements. A large proportion of our program is zoomed into this function, thanks to the funding from bilateral and multilateral development partners, especially the Global Environment Facility and the Green Climate Fund and the Multilateral Fund. In addition to the specific projects that addresses mainly fulfilling the reporting obligations under the various conventions such as UNFCCC, CBD, UNCCD, Stockholm, and Minamata, we co-organized a sub-regional workshop on biodiversity-related MEAs, mobilizing 4 experts from each of the CBD, CMS, and CITES to build capacities of at least 30 participants from the GCC countries on MEAs, processes, and upcoming COPs. We are also supporting synergies among MEAs through the establishment of an integrated environment information system in Iraq. The office also supports countries in preparing for COPs, such as the one held for climate negotiators in April 2022. We also plan to have an expanded and long-term program with the League of Arab States to develop capacities for Arab negotiators and enhancing countries' engagement in the convention implementation. Next slide, please. As far as opportunities are concerned, there is always a need for improving of our work, results, and impacts. We see a number of opportunities where we can build on to achieve higher programmatic impacts. First, the regional office has invested in the establishment of strong partnerships with national counterparts and the UN system at the national, sub-regional, and regional level. These are critical partners for enabling and influencing and shaping the environment agenda at all levels: country, regional, and global. The awareness campaigns launched by the office on several topics will help spread the environment message and scale up the action. The advocacy work is done through our partners, especially the CSOs, youth, and academia entities. Second, we observe an increased demand for UNEP support in advancing environment and climate action at the national level. In other words, for more country-oriented projects. This is evident from projects in the GCC, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Qatar that are self-financed by their governments. UNEF 5 resolutions are drivers for additional action on critical topics such as plastics, nitrogen management, minerals, air quality. The engagement of countries in consultation meetings on these resolutions is evidence of commitment for relevance as well as follow-up actions. Finally, it is important to note that hosting 2 COPs in the region will certainly be an opportunity for raising awareness on climate crisis and build the momentum for more ambitious climate action in the region. Next slide, please. When we talk about risks, we can say that our operation in the region is not as smooth as it looks. There are potential risks associated with activities that we conduct. Several countries in the regions are affected by political instability and conflicts, posing considerable operational risks and challenges with regard to project development and implementation. This may not encourage development partners to invest in environment protection in those countries. There is also a limited expertise pool in the region that can at times be an obstacle to implement activities within the local context. Next slide, please. Lessons learned. We believe that setting priorities should be driven by countries, as was evident from the regional and country level consultations held to develop the West Asia Work Plan for 2022 and beyond. UNEP served as a convening agent for regional programs that promoted more regional cooperation, exchange of information, and expertise. More importantly, we believe that our proactive efforts in engaging with UN country teams paid off in terms of enhancing the environment dimension of the CCAs and UN development cooperation frameworks. It also brought about opportunities for joint programming, such as the joint projects with UNDP, FAO, UNITAR, UN Habitat, the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, and the League of Arab States, and the Islamic Development Bank, with whom we have solidified our cooperation through the signing of interagency agreements. When we look at changes made, we have made important changes in our approaches and working modality based on our gained experience and lessons learned. We have adopted a more systematic approach to programming of activities at the national and regional level. This was triggered by the experience from the consultation meetings we held during the MTS development and readiness in running up to UNEA 5.1. We are now applying regular mapping of national and regional needs to adjust our response plans as necessary and coordinate much more with UNEP technical divisions and similarly the different RC offices and UNCT to ensure relevance. And finally, we became more proactive to secure additional resources, although at times mostly internal, to support the office engagement in the UN reform. Next slide, please. Looking ahead with the climate momentum that the region is witnessing, we will be focusing our support to countries to enhance climate ambition and implementation under the Paris Agreement. This is in addition to supporting COP27 and COP28. The implementation phase of the Middle East Green Initiative gives the opportunity for UNEP to bring about the environment and climate dimension, as well as the restoration work and experience gained through decades of work on ecosystems and nature-based solutions. We also look ahead to support countries' engagement in the negotiations to end plastic pollution under the INC. With this, Mr. Chair, I conclude my presentation, but with your indulgence, please allow me to answer the questions from the distinguished delegates of Netherlands and Malawi. On the question from Malawi and from Netherlands, based on the experience to date from the MTS, what can help us to deliver better would be to strengthen inter-regional collaboration, cooperation, and possible planning on transboundary issues. As an example, sand and dust storm affecting Africa, West Asia, and Central Asia. We also need to improve the mechanism of access to finance, particularly for countries in crisis. To answer the distinguished guest from Malawi, we work very, very closely with the divisions through regular programming meetings, and we have deep dives into projects to reflect regional priorities in the work of the division and the organization as a whole. I hope this clarifies a bit more. I thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for your attention, and I remain available.
I thank you very much, Mr. Dimasi. I have two speakers on my list, starting with Iraq, then following with Kuwait. Iraq, you have the floor.
Thank you for giving me the floor. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to be here today in this important meeting and wish to thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to reflect on Iraq's cooperation with UNEP and in particular the Regional Office for West Asia and to thank the Regional Director for his presentation. Allow me to start my intervention by stating that Iraq has had a fruitful partnership with the Regional Office for almost 2 decades. UNEP has been supported our journey to protect our precious environment and to reconnect with the international community with regard to the environment multilateralism. UNEP in particular assisted Iraq in accessing and ratifying a number of multilateral environment agreements, including Vienna Convention, climate, biodiversity, and chemicals-related conventions. In this intervention, I would like to shed light on 2 successful initiatives that both Iraq and UNEP have celebrated this year. The first is the declaration of two protected areas of national and global significance. The declaration was made during the visit of the regional director to my country in March 2022. The two protected areas of Al-Tib in the province of Misan and Al-Dalmaj in the province of Diwania and Wasat cover an area of more than 211,000 hectares. We also opened the National Center for Environmental Information System, AIS. Once fully operational, it will support keeping the environment under review in Iraq, provide guidance to policy and decision-making that are based on data and science, and initiate corrective actions to halt environmental degradation. Both projects are funded by the Global Environment Facility, where the UNEP regional office plays a critical role in assisting Iraq in accessing financing from global environment funds. Other projects under the implementation, including zone chemicals and climate change. Mr. Chair, Iraq appreciates the positive role played by the UNEP in Iraq and thanks the program and funding countries regarding the projects being worked on with the ministries and concerned authorities. Iraq has suffered a lot because of scourge of war and fought terrorism on behalf of the world. And after Iraq's army victory and defeats over ISIS, it has become more secure and stable and continues to rebuild the infrastructure of Iraq facilities and related projects and requests for further supports in this regard. In conclusion, allow me to thank UNEP and the West Asia Office for the leadership role it is playing in facilitating access to global financial resources and providing technical support to countries in the region. And we look forward for more cooperation for a sustainable environment in Iraq and the region. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank you very much, and I now have Kuwait followed by the Netherlands. Please. Is Kuwait in the room or online, because we had a request ahead of the meeting already, so then hence I had pre-booked them. But if that is not the case, I will then give the floor to the Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would like to thank the regional director for referring and responding to the general question that we had posed to all the regional programs. Mr. Chair, as we come to the end of this agenda item, we would like to use this opportunity to thank all the regional officers for their presentations. And as we indicated before, we also want to express support for the questions that were raised earlier by our colleague from Malawi on the relationship between the regional programs and the 7 sub-programs under the program of work. Our discussions on this agenda item are intended to provide insight in the implementation of the program of work and increase our joint understanding of the outcomes and results achieved by UNEP and the opportunities, challenges, and risks encountered in the implementation of the medium-term strategy and the program of work. The relationship between the thematic divisions and sub-programs and the regional offices is an important element in that. And based on the information that we had received today, we would like to recommend that this relationship is strengthened in the future of the implementation of the MTS and program of work. Reflecting on the discussions that we had yesterday and this morning, the Netherlands would like to recommend to the annual subcommittee meeting to request the Secretariat for future regional presentations to the CPR on the implementation of the medium-term strategy and program of work, that less focus is put on inputs and outputs, but more so on strategic outcomes that have been achieved through their efforts in the context of the medium-term strategy and its program of work. It would help the discussion, in our view, if those presentations could indicate what are the obstacles that were encountered as the implementation of the program of work is ongoing, what is required from us, the member states, to enhance their effectiveness, and what do they need from UNEP in the 7 sub-programs, as well as to receive recommendations as part of the report that will help guide the discussion and can in turn support the regional officers to enhance their implementation efforts. Furthermore, we agree, and I think that was also requested by a colleague from Malawi, that we would have benefited if the regional presentations would have preceded with a general introduction that provides an overview on the relationship between the regional programs and the program of work and its sub-programs, as well as on the funding streams that relate to the work of the regional offices. We would therefore like to request the Secretariat to follow up with that information that provides insight on how the regional programs relate to the program of work later this week, or if that is not possible, to provide this information after the meeting in the post-meeting documents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Netherlands, and I take it that that was a bit broader than just on this point. And I hear that Kuwait is now ready to join us. So please, you have the floor. Kuwait. Your silence is getting more and more sort of requests for the floor here. So I see Switzerland, and seeing if we could look if there's a connectivity problem with Kuwait. So Switzerland, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to be brief. I know it's almost lunchtime, but just to say that we fully support what was just said by our colleagues from the Netherlands. We think all the points she made are very valuable, and we think that this would be mutually beneficial for regional offices and the work with member states to have a more focused discussion, notably on the challenges they face and how member states can support them in their work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Malawi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just briefly to indicate that we are in complete support of the statement that has just been said by the distinguished representative of Netherlands on the question that we have been asking. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Then I have the scientific and technological community wanting to come in, unless Kuwait is now wanting to come in at this moment. If you just hold 15 seconds, so I'll see. That does not seem to be the case, so then scientific and technological community, please, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for West Asia and Mr. Damasi. Just very quickly, I know I'm standing in between lunch. One query about the Saudi initiative for Green Middle East. I wonder what are the engagement of West Asia in this initiative, and if there is an opportunity for engagement of major groups, especially science major group, as we have some concerns, we might be of an extra help in this regard. Also, we would like more support from Mr. Damasi for engagement of major groups in West Asia region, whether for Arab League meetings or regional meeting in West Asia. We are participating fully in global level, but on regional level, we face some difficulties. So we need more support. For example, in Stockholm Plus 50, we had some events by major groups on global level, but on regional level, we were not informed at all. Only the two representatives, the regional representative, were informed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and let me note, it is not you standing between us and lunch. It is the answers which we are about to hear, because without those, we will not have sufficient appetite. So please, Mr. Damasi, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Let me start with the Green Initiative. Here I can confirm that the UNEP West Asia office is actually contributing to the design of the initiative in full. In terms of involving major group in that element, it's a bit difficult because we do not control the process. It is led by the government. The issue, similarly to the involvement of the major groups in the League of Arab States, this is a matter that was discussed with the League of Arab States even during the last UNEA, and we're trying to coordinate between the League of Arab States and the different groupings to see how we can try to get the accredited major groups to UNEP to attend the League of Arab States. But as you can imagine, the League of Arab States has its own mechanism that we as UNEP have no full control over. In terms of the point made on the Stockholm Plus 50 event, we encourage all the major group to attend through our meetings. There was an open invitation to everybody, and there was even a meeting that was actually called upon by our office to all the accredited entities where we briefed and invited everybody. Hope this clarifies. I can see Mr. Ambassador from Kuwait on my screen. I don't know if you can see him. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I thank you very much. And I take it now that with these interventions and with some more general remarks which have been made, we may even be in the very lucky moment that we could actually conclude agenda item 4. I will see if somebody objects to concluding agenda item 4. No, I don't. Children and youth are objecting to closing agenda item 4? No, let's give them the floor. And I see Malawi before that. Malawi, please.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. Dear Member States and distinguished delegate, I am Ahmed Oda from Palestine, speaking on behalf of the Children and Youth Major Group. And we would like to thank the West Asia Regional Office for the presentation made. We as a youth constituency continue to have a collaboration with the regional office. The regional of MENA has more than 200 million young people. Young people in the region are not only advocating on environmental topics, but also are victims of war and conflicts. First, we want to request that the Regional Youth Environment Forum is supported by the UNEP West Asia Regional Office in leading to UNEA 6. Second, we want the UNEP West Asia Regional Office and country offices to be champions of safeguarding the rights of young people, especially young environmental defenders in the region. Intergenerational and social equity is enhanced become the two elements that must be incorporated in our work as we move forward. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Sami, for giving me the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize to the distinguished delegate of Malawi because of the order of speakers, I did not want to dampen the enthusiasm of the youth, because they bring us a lot of dynamism. And I do see Kuwait trying to make a connection work, but I would give then Kuwait the last word, but first now give the floor to Malawi, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My delegation has no problem. We also believe the youth are the engine of the world, so we